quiet.
Morning, Steve.
Good choice. Very good choice.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hi.
It's still morning.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Joe goes silent.
Oh, yeah.
How do you do that? I don't know. It's my morning voice. It's how I wake up. Okay. So, hi, guys. We're the Steve and Greg Show, and we're here to take your burning questions. So hopefully you have something burning inside you, I can tell. Everybody jump up at once.
Maybe we'll start off with a bit of trivia. There's quite a few shows that Steve and I realized that we worked together on without working together on.
Right.
One of which was Transformers,
Yes.
Rescue Bots.
Yes.
You were quite surprised, weren't you?
I was very surprised. Yeah. I tried to block it from memory.
What, the fact that we're on
Yeah.
that show together?
No. No. We don't always work together in the same room, but yeah, just looking through our IMDb's, we realized that we've probably been on 50 or more shows opposite one another, but rarely in the same room at the same time.
Right.
So, yeah, I can tell you're all impressed with that.
It's awesome.
I think he's very impressed.
Do you guys have questions? We're just going to kind of keep it loose. Do any of you have any idea who we are?
Yes.
Okay.
No idea who you are.
Anybody who doesn't know who we are and you're just sleeping in here?
I don't know who you are.
Perfect, man. Perfect. Are you serious?
No.
Okay. Because we're just going to spend the next hour reading through our IMDb's for you.
This is my first Q&A convention, so Steve's guiding me through.
I'm deflowering him in front of you.
Instead, I have to pick up the microphone and sing in a bit.
Yeah, you do.
Yes.
Why don't you start off?
No, you're okay. That's fine.
No? Okay. All right.
We'll warm to that.
Yes, we will. All right, here's a question right here. Let's start with you, sir. Thank you for being brave. Yes.
In voice acting, how often do you actually get to work with other voice actors at the same time?
That's a big question, actually. And it's different for every area of voice acting. Well, you want to
I think most of the time, sometimes you work on your own. I think more in animated movies, you work on your own. But in ongoing series like Star Wars Rebels, we're all in the same room. Although there was one of the shorts that came up, we weren't in the same room together.
Right. We were in different countries while we were recording this.
Right.
I was actually in your homeland.
Yeah, I was in Canada.
Were you? So, yeah, I was in England. He was in Canada. Who knew?
Yeah.
And yet it seems like we're together in the same room.
All the Warner Brothers stuff, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, that's usually all together at the same time, right? Yeah.
Most video games are not. Most video games were in there with just us and the director and their crew. And same with anime. Anime is one-on-one because it's just too confusing when you're doing the logistics.
And then sometimes it's the phone patch, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do this game Dragon Age. I think that's coming out soon, Dragon Age Inquisition. And I think they're in Edmonton, Canada. So they'll be on the phone. I'll have a director on the phone and an engineer in the room. And we'll all kind of work through it together. Yeah.
Who's next? Don't make me come out there. Okay. So,
Yeah, for like the Star Wars Rebels, I mean, did you go into like the studio and do that like at Disney or ILM or what? How did this?
it's not quite that glamorous.
No, not quite that glamorous. Okay. Or
No, we were-
bathroom is on that.
No, we recorded at a place called Ellis Studios. It's a beautiful studio in Los Angeles. But for those shorts, because the cast wasn't really assembled yet, they just had to kind of grab us where we were. And for that one particular short that I think we were in together, we were literally recording separate countries over the phone. But most of the time we are together at LA Studios, and they try to get as much of the cast together as possible.
How many episodes do you do at a time? Or what, or do you
Just one.
Just one at a time?
You know, 4 to 5 hour sessions for one episode, and sometimes we have pickups from previous sessions. But yeah, they take their time on the show. That's one of the great things about Rebels is that they will use up the whole 4 hours. Some shows try to rush it through, but our director, Dave Filoni, will actually come into the room with us, give us some background, and he really pays attention to every single detail. And he's a huge Star Wars fan too. Everybody in the crew is. And so they have people there from Disney and Lucas who are overseeing every step of the way. And we really use that 4 or 5 hours to its fullest.
Yes.
Anything in this, in the Rebels that they've let you kind of know that's going to be tying into the new movie coming out next year?
We told you we'd have to kill you.
Good question.
You don't have to tell us what it is, but have they let you know that you're doing something that's going to tie into that?
We cannot confirm or deny.
I'm not asking for the specific. I'm just saying, do you know, hey, this is going to tie you? Can't tell him.
Maybe. That's the most definitive answer you're going to get on that one. Sorry, we can't even do a yes or no on that.
Yeah.
No, they're really tight. It's the best as they should be for something like that. So, yeah.
I'm sure they are.
No leakage here, guys. Sorry. At least of that kind, anyway.
Don't want to
But you and then you next.
Could you just provide us with a list of questions you're not allowed to answer about?
Maybe.
That'll take up the whole hour on its own. Yeah. Excellent question. How about you, Becker?
Have you by chance been able to go to the set of episode 7?
No. Have you?
No.
I wish. I haven't even been to the ranch yet. I want to go so bad. Hope that happens soon.
Tell us something about Rebels that we haven't heard yet, between the promos, the trailers, and stuff like that. Anything you can tell us about Rebels that we haven't seen yet? No.
Maybe. Nah, in-room shenanigans, that's about it. Yeah. Anything else? Some of you guys answer me yet, then we'll come back to you. How about you, Bruce?
Give us a quick thumbnail of each of your characters.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I play Baron Rudor, TIE fighter, a little bit arrogant, a little bit full of himself, maybe not as smart as he thinks he is. Wouldn't you agree with that, Steve?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
What about you? What about you, Kat?
I play Zeb Aurelios. The full name is Gareth Zeb Aurelios. Only his mom calls him that when she's mad. He's huge, he's purple, he has prehensile feet. He's a warrior from his planet of the sun. He is of the Lasat species, a new species to the Star Wars universe. And carries an amazing weapon called a bow rifle. And he is kind of the martial artist of the group. It's a different fighting technique than has been seen in the Star Wars universe before. And is kind of the muscle and big brother of the group. And definitely a rebel. A lot of bad things have happened to his people, so he's got an axe to grind with the Empire.
Yeah, for Craig, how was you working with the Pirate of the Caribbean with Johnny Depp?
Pirates of the Caribbean's been a really fun ride. When we did the first one, I don't think anyone expected it to be as big as it turned out to be. I think the last Pirates movie before that was Cutthroat Island, and that hadn't done so well, so we weren't expecting it to be quite so big. Johnny was great. I remember when he went in for his wardrobe test, and he had the dreadlocks and the rings and the jewelry and the teeth, and he wanted it. He got the costume to how he really wanted it to look. And then he got the costume designer to add 10 more gold teeth, 6 more rings, 5 more bracelets, twice the amount of hair. And he went in to show the executives at Disney, and they were all taken aback by how he looked. And he said, well, how about I lose some gold teeth, and I'll lose some of my hair, and maybe I'll, lose some of the bracelets, and they went, great, perfect, and it's exactly how we wanted it to look. So, smart man.
Man, that was good.
Yes. Were either of you or both of you Star Wars fans before you landed the job?
Answer correctly on that.
Maybe. Who's not a Star Wars fan? I mean, come on. Growing up, I didn't get to see too many movies at the movie theater, but I do remember Star Wars. And of course it was indelibly inked in my psyche. So anytime you get to be a part of something that you grew up with is fantastic. And we get to do some really cool stuff. I was telling Steve the other night, we were talking about shows we've done, and I had to do Scooby-Doo, and a couple of times I've got to say, if it wasn't for you meddling kids, go in the room and sit next to Casey Kasem, you know, the legend of Frank Welker. That's when I met him doing Scooby-Doo. And Rob Paulson, who, you know, was in my first animated series and played the nemesis to my hero. And now I get to meet and travel with this legend sitting beside me. So, no, I get to do I get to do Batman, Batman the Brave and the Bold, and, the Batman, and so many incarnations. Every time I go into a studio and record, it's just a great, fun gig. And so to be a part of the Star Wars world, first with the Clone Wars and now with Rebels, is a real privilege.
The great thing about Star Wars is it really does bring out the kid in all of us, I think, and to hear an on-camera celebrity of his stature to be talking about it with this much love and reverence, it's actually kind of unusual. When I work with a lot of voice actors who don't do on-camera, and a lot of the on-camera people, frankly, are not necessarily grateful for this kind of work, as Greg is, and as a lot of them are on this franchise. But it kind of brings up that kid in all of us. And I was there in 1977. I was graduating high school when A New Hope came out. And I saw it 3 times that weekend. And I remember as a teenager sitting there in the row, in I think the first 3 rows, and seeing the Imperial Star Destroyer come across the screen for the first time, and everybody's head snaps back in the theater. And like you're saying, it leaves an indelible impression. And to come back all these years later, and I've worked on a lot of the games too, we both have. Right? You've worked on games too?
Yep.
And very exciting work on the games, and I love everybody at Lucas. At that time it was LucasArts. And it was so exciting to do that, but this just takes it to a whole different level now. And I'm a Star Wars, I'm that 17-year-old kid all over again. And especially watching the first couple of episodes of the show, it brought back that same sense of memory of wonder and excitement that Star Wars gave me back then. So it's nice to have those moments in our career when we're so busy, we're working on so many different things. And most of the shows are really fun and great to work on, but there are these few that really stand out, and this is one of them. Yeah, far away.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You be next.
Yeah.
Have you can explain if there's any differences since Disney took over as opposed to when LucasArts? Is there a lot changed or anything changed at all, really?
No, I think one of the great things is that, from my perspective, there's no difference.
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously Disney, you know, smartly just allowing Lucas to carry on the way it's been going, and not interfering and meddling, and you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So
Yeah.
that's just from our point of view.
Yeah, to their credit, Disney has really, they've been an incredible support for this show, and to get Star Wars relaunched again, and everything Disney's been touching, I think, and the Marvel franchises too. Both of us work a lot on the Marvel franchises, and Disney has really, you know, they certainly have their input on things, but they have been so incredibly supportive and wonderful to just kind of stand back and let the people do this who have been doing it forever. So, you know, from my perspective also, in several different incarnations of shows that Disney is now a part of, it's been nothing but a great experience.
That's the best possible news.
Yeah, it is. No, it's really good. I'm a big fan. Big fan. Do you have a question?
All right, so my question is, have you read John Jackson Miller's novel or any of the other tie-in material with Rebels?
Not yet. I haven't read them yet. I will. It's on the list.
No. Yes.
Favorite roles you guys have ever participated
You know, I always say it's the role that I'm doing at this moment in time. I know that sounds like a twee, cheesy answer, but I think that's the case. You know, I got to do a Western last year. I had a fun time doing that. I think that's going to be out sometime this year. It's with Demi Moore and Kiefer, Donald Sutton, and Brian Cox. What's it called? Forsaken.
Coming soon to a theater near you.
Pretty good. So, yeah, I enjoyed doing that because it was something different. No, usually what I'm doing right now. So right now, let's see, what am I doing next? Tuesday, I'll be doing Turbo for Disney and Pixar. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my answer is the same to that question. And there's so many characters that have become benchmarks for me. Cowboy Bebop, Spike Spiegel was a big benchmark in my life, just because it led to so many other things. It led to Tom and Toonami, and which in itself launched a whole bunch of other careers. But like he was saying, it is the characters that we're working on now, and I'm just grateful to be working. And I invest as much into Soldier A as I'm going to do into, Wolverine. He never stops working. Oh, well, we're especially as guys who only do voiceover, or we consider ourselves to be the blue-collar workers of the industry.
He brought his recording studio here.
I did.
In his room.
I did. Well, mini version of it. But yeah, like you said, whatever we're working on now, so Monday I'm back on the regular show, and love working with those guys. So that'll be my favorite character that day. Tuesday, I don't know. We'll see.
Over here.
I was wondering, I know Steve was in it, but did you guys seen the documentary, I Know That Voice? And did it portray voice acting properly? Was it...
Yes, it did. Well, John DiMaggio headed up that production, and he's a dear friend and one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. He's an incredible voice actor. And he did that really as a love letter to the industry, and he did it because a lot of voice actors don't get any recognition. And there were some faces on there that you may have never seen, you may have never recognized otherwise. And it was really nice. I thought it was really nicely done, and it was an accurate impression of what it is like behind the scenes. And it was also filmed in a very casual way too. He set up a little studio for some of us. Some of it was filmed in people's homes. Some of it was in the recording studio where we were working. But it really was in our home or working environment. It was great. It was one of the best things I got to do. We had a lot of fun working on that. And he's got enough footage, he could do 10 more of those films. It was kind of ridiculous, actually.
I haven't seen it, but I have worked with John many times, and he is larger-than-life character and extremely talented.
Yeah. One of the funniest people on the planet, too.
Yeah.
Can you do some Wolverine for me?
I'm the best there is at what I do, and what I do isn't very nice.
I think was there a question back here? There we go, sir.
I have two questions. I'm going to be greedy.
Sure.
Number one, how many episodes of Rebels have you guys done so far? And number two, just as a general question as a voice actor, how much direction do you guys get as far as your delivery, and you have somebody there constantly say it this way, say it that way, or do they just let you, here's your lines and run with it and do what you want to do?
I'll answer the second question.
Not too much direction. I mean, we'll go through some shows like on Batman, Brave and the Bold, and Beware the Batman, and Ray Romano will read through the script one time, and then we'll get notes or suggestions, or if there's a new voice that I'm doing, we'll find that voice, and so you just kind of put yourself in the voice director's hands, and it's higher, lower, more gravelly, or so you find the voice that way. And then there's some shows where maybe you've done a character a couple of times and you come back 3 months, 4 months, 5 months later, and you need a reference, a reminder of what the voice was, so they'll play back the reference. Transformers Rescue Bots. I came in to take over a voice from Tim Curry. So I had to find, by listening to his representation of Dr. Morocco, had to find that Tim Curry, that sort of nasally, and it's an interesting voice that he does on that as well. There's almost 3 voices in one, so you have to find the tone of the voice and then the performance through that.
Yeah, and I don't think we're allowed to say how many episodes we've recorded yet. So that's probably a Dave Filoni question, and he'll deflect it even more than I just did. But on Rebels, he gives us a lot of context on Rebels, but like the best directors, I think, like Greg was saying, they'll set the context for us, but they let us do what we do. They hire us because they want our take on it first. And often they'll just let us roll and then kind of tweak it and shine it up a little bit.
Yeah, they let us play, and that's what I think the joy is of doing voiceover, is you don't have to come in too early and do hair and makeup and costume and learn all the lines, and you go into it. That's why I love
Warner Brothers, places with a lot of history. And you get to work with these, a lot of times, I mean, I'm sure you guys know them, but unsung heroes, very talented people. You get to play and have fun and laugh a lot, giggle, try and remain focused and do the job. But it really is a fun ride.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good gig. Right here.
How did both of you get your start?
Well, I was telling Steve, voiceover-wise, I've been on camera for many years and theatre, and someone said to me years ago, maybe 14 years ago, 15, maybe more than that, you should try voiceover. And I said, oh, okay. And I went and met with an agency. I was very naive at the time. I thought I'd just walk in and they'd sign me and I'd start working. And I met all the agents, and I think I went in with such energy and tried to do so many voices and act really wacky and zany. I think they probably thought I was on some kind of drugs. But to their credit, they signed me. And the first animated series I got was actually, it was from a comic book I'd read as a kid. I got to play the title character, and the guy who created it was from my hometown, and the guy who played my nemesis was Rob Wilson, and he's still one of my favorite voiceover guys. He's probably right up there. He's just super talented, gracious, humble guy, and I learned a lot with him on one side, Jeff Bennett on the other, and Maurice LaMarche across the way. So that's how my journey in voiceover started.
And I started by accident. I was actually a struggling musician playing in an R&B band during the 80s, opening for heavy metal acts. So that didn't go so well. But my day job at the time, I had a few jobs. My day job at the time was working in a mailroom, and I was a driver for a low-budget film company called Empire Pictures. And we were famous for films like Reanimator, Movies, a lot of those films, the Puppet Master movies. And so I was low man on the totem pole. I was picking up condoms in the parking lot and driving the boss's dogs to get me skunked. And the head of the mailroom and head of the drivers was an actor. Everybody else in the building was an actor. And he was casting out this Japanimation program called The Guyver. And they needed a guy who could do some creature voices. And I happened to have the deepest voice in the mailroom. And so he said if I came in on a weekend, he'd feed me free breakfast and free lunch. That was all I needed to get in the door. And he wanted to try me out on this thing, and if it worked out, they might pay me to actually be on the show, and they were going to pay $7 a line to do this thing. And I thought this was great money for just messing around. So I walked in the studio, and at that time the technology wasn't quite what it is today, and it was in a tree house. It was literally in this guy's tree house in his backyard. He had a band, and he had a little recording studio that he built in this crazy tree house. And there's a place called the Cave. The back of the tree backed up to this hillside that he had carved out, and he had built this little fortress up there. The worst recording studio I've ever been in. It was not soundproofed at all, and he was nuts. As we're in the studio, he's outside hanging from his knees with a chainsaw trimming the trees. And so we had to keep stopping him, and we ended up having to re-record everything that we did in that studio in another place. But basically the very first thing I did was to walk up to the microphone and just go, and they said, all right, you're hired. And 26 episodes later, I was the main villain on the show and learned how to act by stealing from everybody else in the room. And just kept doing it for fun for about 10 years until finally I became an executive at that same company. I stayed at that same company. I was head of marketing. I was traveling to France for the Cannes Film Festival. Had a corner office in Hollywood, and I hated it because the people I was working with were just very shady Hollywood types. At that time, everybody transitioned. And so I finally booked a job for 7-Eleven. I booked a campaign for 7-Eleven. I was that guy who says, oh, thank heaven. And I thought, okay, well, this is going to pay for my house now. And quit my job, and then the union went on strike, and I was out of work for a year and a half. So kind of clawed my way back, and many, many years later, it turned into something I can support myself with. Up till 5 years ago, my parents were asking me if I had a backup plan because they didn't believe I could make a living doing voice. How about somebody who hasn't asked one? All the way in the back of me.
I didn't probably get asked this a lot, but I do love your source stream. voice. How was it working with Frank Welker and Peter Cullen?
I was an 8-year-old fangirl in that room. To hear Peter Cullen say "wow" for the first time, I mean, Peter he looks like old Hollywood. He's a classic gentleman with the thin mustache and perfectly coiffed hair, and he dresses up for work. He comes in pressed pants and shirt. And he's not as tall as I thought he'd be. Peter's probably 5'7", maybe, something like that, and smokes like a chimney. He walks up to the microphone and he says for the first time, and the walls are flexing, our bones are vibrating. I just couldn't believe that really was his voice. They don't tweak it at all. It sounds exactly like that. And Frank, I've been a gigantic fan of Frank forever. He's done every voice in every Disney movie you've ever heard for every creature, and plus Scooby-Doo and Freddy and so many other things. Frank is a legend in my mind, and one of the greatest gentlemen of all time too. And I got to work with him on Scooby-Doo also, and I got to say the Meddling Kids line. So it was my second time in the studio with him. So I didn't gush as much, but I still did. And just to hear them together, to hear Megatron and Optimus together in the same room, I was like that squealing fangirl. All of us in the room were. And there's a bunch of veteran actors, and all of us were like, oh my God, I can't believe we're here. It was great. And they've become dear friends now. They're amazing people. Frank is one of these guys also who, the first time I met him on Scooby-Doo, I was a little green back then and terrified in that room. It was a scary room at Warner Brothers. And Frank took me aside and he gave me his home phone number, and he said, if you need anything, just give me a call. It's a crazy business, and I'm happy to help you out with anything you need. And that's why I love our community. It's like that. So, thank you.
Yeah. How was it for Craig? How was working with for the Garfield movie? Garfield. The movie?
Garfield.
Oh, Garfield. Yeah. Yeah. They were Garfield sessions. I played Nigel with Ferret, and they were solo sessions because it was for a movie. Usually for a movie, you do the sessions on your own. And Tim Hill, the director, he wanted a lot of improvisation, so I would go in. They were a lot of fun. I would go into the studio or Fox or wherever we were recording, and he would give me an idea of the scene. I would see the scene, and then he would sort of say, "Okay, just make something up." So there was one scene, I think all the animals were eating all the food.
Oh, yeah.
And I think my character was like that. It was Nigel Ferret, wasn't it? All right, hey. And I started singing the song and doing a rhyme and doing a poem and laugh. It was like that. And that ended up going in the movie. But I don't remember the rhyme that I did. That was it. The female ferrets sing this song, Nigel, hey, Nigel, hey. Female ferrets can't be wrong, Johnny Depp. So,
now we know about.
Those are the moments where you kind of, when you're improvising, you do something and you don't remember what you did, and then you see the move and you go, oh, I did that. The same thing happened talking about Frank Welker. I was lucky enough to be invited by the delightful Chris Zimmerman to go to the Cartoon Network and do an improvised episode of a cartoon, which apparently is very rare that this happens. And it was with Phil Lamar, Ray Delisle, Frank Welker. And they put us in a recording booth at Cartoon Network and just let us start creating a story and characters. And it ended up being, I think we went in time traveling mode back to the days of King Arthur. And I played the campus Lady of the Lake that said with me. I thought, oh, I am the Lady of the Lake, Arthur. What would you like, Phil? Go shopping, get some shoes, should you? And then we did about an hour of silliness and lots of different characters, and they sort of molded the story together, and then we got some semblance of an episode from it. But things like that, just, fun. So in answer to your question, Garfield, fun.
It's fun?
Yeah.
So you never work with Bill Murray, right?
The closest I got to Bill Murray was crawling up his pants. My character crawling up his pants. So I didn't. I couldn't fit. Okay. Not that I want to. Sure, it's warm and snuggled. So stop. Next question.
Did either of you meet Don Juan?
No. I traveled in his footsteps a lot when I was recording for Toonami back in the day. We were recording in the same studio. And I would get a stack of sides for what I was going to be recording that day. There was maybe 3-4 sheets. And Don, who had just been in there, he'd just come by limo and had just left by limo. His stack was about that thick, and he would just bang them out.
Really?
And so I was just trying to absorb some of the essence, scrape off DNA from the microphone. I always wanted to meet him, and I heard he was a really warm, wonderful guy. Yeah, one of my heroes of this over too.
Got time for one more, guys.
Okay, who hasn't asked a question? Who has a burning one going? Okay, how about you right here?
So you guys both have musical careers? I know he has an album. Did you have an album out? Do you guys have albums per se?
No, I used to make music. I started out doing musical theatre in West End of London, doing underwood weather shows, and then I had a record deal and released some pop songs in Europe. But not these days. I haven't. I mean, apart from singing as Nigel the Ferret.
Oh no.
Starlight Express.
And apparently I did sing a song last night on this very stage.
Right there. Right where you're sitting at. Yeah.
Yeah, and my musical talent was never developed. So I was a rhythm guitarist in this band, and I wasn't very good. But I play every once in a while, and the only thing that I've ever recorded professionally that made it to an album was as a gift to the fans from Call of Duty, from the Call of Duty franchise. And at the zombie level, for those of you familiar with this in Black Ops, there were 4 of us who literally our only function was to slaughter zombies. And so we did what we call the Very Zombie Christmas. And we had a composer put together classic Christmas songs, arrangements of classic Christmas songs, and we just sing about slaughtering zombies through the entire thing. We put out an album, and it was called Very Zombie Christmas. We were called the Kings of Carnage. And we put it out on iTunes, and Activision shut us down and served us with a cease and desist. We didn't ask for permission first, and we should have. But you can still find it if you look on YouTube. Just look for Very Zombie Christmas, and they're all there. It's you don't get some of the chatter in between, which was drunken and anyway. But there's plenty of that in the songs.
I did rap at the end of a game called Shadows of the Damned, which. Again, Steve reminded me we were the 2.
You were Mike Johnson, and I was Garcia F. Hotspur.
Hey, and I don't remember the voice. Oh my goodness. And we also found out that we both voiced Rocket Raccoon. Right?
Yes, we did. I was a bad impression of his version. Apparently, that's what the fans are saying.
That's cruel.
I don't care. I was cheering him. I actually retweeted that. Oh, and I'm singing on Doc McStuffins also, the show Doc McStuffins. If you have little kids, I've done several episodes of that, so I'm Commando Crush on that. And we sing, I feel better, so much better. And also, is it Kangaroo? I was a kangaroo on that too.
All right, mate.
Boxing Kangaroo.
Try the Tasmanian Tiger.
Yeah.
You love that game, right? And last week I was singing on. I just started doing The Lion Guard, which is the new Disney series, following on from The Lion King. And I was singing last week on a great song that was written for that. There's music and songs in that show, and it looks fantastic. So.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together, please. One more time.
I'm so crazy.
Okay.